Yo, world, it's your boy Fosta Key, and I'm back at 96.2 B banging. And I got another special guest, and not only a special, this is one. This is one top of the line entrepreneur, innovator in Holly Springs and other cities. Mr. Billy Autry. How you doing, Mr. Billy Autry?
Doing great. Good to be with you this morning, man.
Oh my God. I'm kind of nervous. I ain't gonna lie because you've been such a staple in the community, and the things you have done for my community has been outstanding. I applaud you, and I just appreciate you for being who you are. First of all, I mean, everybody been hitting me up, giving me questions to ask you, but we got to start from where it began. I just want to know, from Billy Autry standpoint, growing up, can you just give me a rundown? Growing up.
Well, I tell you what, young man, that is a great place to start. I was just thinking as I was driving over here, I said, now he's probably going to ask me about some of my accomplishments or some of my non-accomplishments. And I was just thinking that I couldn't do an interview without talking about my past,
Okay.
about my childhood that I had as I was growing up.
All right.
Because all of the things that I tried to accomplish in my later life, it was based upon my childhood as I was growing up.
Okay.
So now, if you don't mind,
I want you to
would
talk.
like to just sort of tell a little bit about what that childhood was like.
Give it to us. They want to hear it.
Because I'm sure a lot of your audience are probably much younger and they don't know about some of these experiences that we had as we was growing up.
Well,
Okay, so I was the youngest of 5 siblings.
5 siblings.
Okay, and 2 of my siblings were raised or brought up in the house with my grandmother in Holly Springs, and 3 of my siblings were in the house with my mother, and we were in Pontotoc, Mississippi.
Okay.
Okay, so now I would like to just describe sort of what those conditions were like back in those years.
I got you.
I was born into a family or a house where there was no running water.
Oh my God.
We had no electricity.
Wow.
We had no phone service in my early years. Okay, and I also would like to describe like the education system. In those days, we had something like a split school system where the white would go to school for so many months, but in the black school system, we would go to school for a few months and then be out to pick cotton.
Wow.
So our education was lacking in some points.
Okay.
Okay, I grew up in a time where the segregation was still in effect.
Wow.
Where we went to the movie where we had to sit at the top and the white would sit at the bottom.
Okay.
I saw conditions when I went to my city where if we wanted a sandwich, we had to go to a back door. We had to go in the back of the building in order to get a sandwich.
Wow.
So I'm saying that because all of those things influenced me or inspired me to do things as I grew up.
Okay.
Okay, our houses sort of looked the worst in the community. So it was back in and then I want to share something else with you. Let me go ahead and say that now I am the father of 6 children.
Okay.
My wife is Katie,
Okay.
and I would like to just share some other things with you. Just tell you about some of those conditions that we had was growing up.
Yes.
Okay, as far as entertainment.
Gotcha.
Okay, radio. We didn't have. We had a local radio station in the city, but we never heard black voices on the radio. Okay, we never heard, in other words, all of the recording artists. We never had a chance to see them. We would hear them on the recording things. You know, we had that old type where you had to wind it up.
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, so we heard a lot of those artists, but we never saw them.
Yeah.
Okay, so when I grew up, I wanted to try and get a chance to see some of those, and it was so exciting to me in order to do that.
Yes.
So there were just so many other things that we didn't have when we were growing up. politics. I remember listening to the radio stations, and we would hear all the political speeches, and some of the candidates, they would have trouble pronouncing that word Negro. It would be sort of niggerish like when they would pronounce it. Okay. As I was growing up in my little city, never had a chance to vote. The first time that I voted was when I came to Holly Springs. I think it was the second year in college. And I remember our instructor letting us walk over to the courthouse. We had to interpret part of the Constitution in order to be able to vote. So my class at Mississippi Industrial College, we were some of the first to vote in the city of Holly Springs. Wow. Okay, so just things like that now, young man. Those are the things that inspired me to want to do different. So now it was during those days, as I was growing up, I made a goal. I set a goal for myself. And that goal was, if I can just make things better for my community. I got you. It might be my family, or it might be people in the family. But that has been my goal since I was a child, was to try to make living conditions better. So if you have seen the things that I've tried to do, you may say, why did he do so much? Why did he try to do this? Why did he do that? And everything I did, it was based upon trying to make conditions better in our community. So now with that said, young man, I think we're ready to go, and I can sort of tell you about anything you ask me about.
There we go. That was complete. And hey, I know the audience is out here just tuned in, got their popcorn ready to see what we're going to talk about. And the first thing, I just want to know, when did you know, hey, I'm going to be a boss. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. When did Billy know that?
Okay, here again, we got to go back to my childhood. Okay, when I was growing up, I used to earn extra money to buy my clothes. In other words, young man, you see people struggling now. I had an automobile when I was 16 years old. Okay, and I was going to high school, and I would get up and go to work in the morning and deliver milk. Mm-hmm. You know, at that time, we'd drop milk off on the porch. So I would go and deliver milk and then go to school. And I remember the first car I had, I paid, I think, $10 a week on that car. But I had a car when I was 16 years old. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we would go and pick cotton. Okay, that's
you good?
Okay, now this is when I decided that I wanted to be an entrepreneur. Okay, we would pick cotton, and the owner of the farm would come by and pick us up. And before we would go to the field, he would take us by a store and let us buy our breakfast. Then we would go and pick cotton for him all day, and then he would take us back by the store to spend some of that money. Okay, and that store would always be owned by a white person. So I began to look at things like that. I said, now look, look like we could own some of those things. And all of these things that I saw in my neighborhood, like having to go to the back door to get a sandwich. So in my life, my goal was to try and prepare a place or have a place where a person didn't have to go in the back door. Okay, and so just a lot of the things that I've done was based upon those experiences that I saw when I was growing up, the things that we didn't have. Okay, you know, we might get on up to the limousine service and all those things like that were just things that we didn't have, and I said, surely we can do better. And then I want to say this too, it wasn't just having a business, but just because we are black, we shouldn't have to support black just because we're black, but we should, and this is something I wanted to encourage all people that have business, give top-notch service, just like I noticed you were doing when I came here. In other words, you have your building and your personality and everything, and welcoming me in. And so
sir.
those are things that inspire me so much that I like to see. Not just coming to support me because I'm black,
Yeah.
but I should also give you top-notch service.
I got you. What was your first business? The first business that you ever that started it off, or was it any one business that started everything off?
Okay. Here again, it goes back to my background.
Okay.
As I was teaching school, I taught school for 13 years.
Okay.
But as I was teaching school, I also had part-time jobs. So I had a part-time job as a bartender at the Holly Springs Country Club,
Okay.
mixing liquor.
Okay.
So as I was doing that, man, I would see the lawyers and the doctors and the big-time people. I said, man, people drink this much liquor? Yeah. I would see all the liquor that was being consumed.
Uh-huh.
And then I began to look at Holly Springs. We didn't have a black liquor store.
Okay.
We didn't have one.
Okay.
So that was my first business. I said, if all these people are drinking, I say, I know my people. I see them drinking a lot of alcohol.
Yeah.
So that was it. My first business was
A liquor store.
a liquor store.
Wow. And
Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
But now with that liquor store, we also had a car wash, and we had a service station.
I got you.
And that was called Courtesy Service Plaza.
Courtesy Service.
That was
Plaza.
my first business.
Yeah. Did it take off like you wanted it to, or did it take time for it to develop into something to profit?
No. There was a young man, as I began to develop that back there, I saw a gentleman was sitting on the side of the street. He said, Billy, we were going back there with a load of lumber, and he said, Billy, what's wrong with you? He said, you mean you're going to go and put a liquor store back here in this alley? He said, man, people going to drive so many miles out of the way to keep from going back here to buy any liquor.
Yeah.
Now, in some respect, he was correct,
Okay.
but something he didn't know is how much liquor that was consumed back there in that alley.
Uh-huh.
So it was great.
Okay.
In other words, I think they had done a study and said that we needed to do something like $100,000 to keep your note up. Well, I think we did something like $300,000 the first year we were back there.
Wow.
At one time, more liquor was purchased at the little store back down the alley than any store in Holly Springs.
Wow. Wow.
Okay,
That's
and
amazing.
before I ended that, I think at one time we had 3 liquor stores in Holly Springs.
Wow. Wow. We're gonna take a little break and we're gonna come back. And it's really, we just beginning, and it's heating up, and it's so many things I could ask, and I'm gonna get to some of them. And hey, I know I'm gonna miss some, but hey, man, it's a pleasure just to have you at 96.2 be banging. Hey, it's a real pleasure just to have you on this platform talking to us. Thank you. We'll be right back, guys. Yo, world, we back. It's your boy Fosta Key, 96.2 be banging, and I got my special guest, and he's making this interview very, very easy. Mr. Billy Autry, man, I want to say this again. I appreciate you for stopping through and just dropping these gems on us and just giving us some of this knowledge that I know it's some questions that people want to ask. If y'all hit me up on my live, and maybe I could ask a question that y'all want to ask, but I just want to say I appreciate you. And to start this second round off, say you got a young man like myself, or just a young lady that's aspiring to be an entrepreneur. What advice do you have for them?
Okay, my advice would be, first of all, to come up with a plan. Okay. In other words, if you probably have a vision, something that you see, like I say, most people that go into business, they are doing something that they love, something that they really want to do. So if you're going to go into business, I would say make sure that you have a plan and stick with that plan. get all the information that you will need in order to do that, to do a study on it before you do it. Because a lot of the businesses I had, I just walked into them. I didn't really do a lot of planning, but that can lead to a lot of problems. So whatever you're going to do, if you have a desire to go into business, make sure that you get you a goal, get you a plan, and stick with it.
Okay.
All right.
Jumping into the nightclub scene, was it ever a plan to own a club?
Okay, now again, that goes back to my childhood, the things that we didn't have when I was growing up. Now, I told you a few minutes ago that we started with a liquor store. But as I would be in the liquor store, people would come in and they would carry conversations on with me. And so we went from that liquor store to a little rack and snack. It was called a rack and shack.
I remember the name.
But it was next door. So as people would come in, they said, man, we need a place to sit down, a place to get a sandwich. So that was my next business, was to do that. So as we had the rack and snack, and people would go over there to party, and they said, man, it's a little tight in here. So we expanded to the Octagon. Okay. So that is how I got into the nightclub business, was first going to the rack and snack, and people sitting there having such a great time. We decided that we needed to expand, so we went to the Octagon next. Okay. And when we went to the Octagon, I put a lot of planning into that. That was intended to really be a nice place, or from the shape of it and everything. And when we did that, we brought in a lot of the recording artists. Mm-hmm. In other words, a little town like Holly Springs, like I told you when we were coming up, things we didn't have. We didn't get a chance to see those artists. But this was my opportunity to get to bring those different artists to town. And you're talking about happy. I was just as happy as my customers to see them.
Wow.
And where we brought people like Tyrone Davis, Johnny Taylor, ZZ Hill. We can go on.
Yeah.
Just about any recording artist, blues that you can think of that was popular in the time when I was growing up, people in Holly Springs had an opportunity to see them and enjoy them.
Wow.
Was there Little Milton, and we can just go on.
Keep rolling.
Right.
So did the community, they did support you in a major way?
Yes.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Just to see that, going forward to the current day, I remember Dreamland. Dreamland bring back so many memories for me. Just coming up in that era, I remember when we was hearing about it's about to be a club called Dreamland. It was in the streets. It was everywhere. How did you set your eyes on buying Jitney Jungle?
Ooh, okay. So now, again, I would like to just tell you a little bit about Dreamland. One day I was, after I had seen that piece of property that was for sale, and I never bought a piece of property that was over $1 million, but that piece of property was over $1 million when I purchased it. So one day I was riding out there to see about purchasing it, and I was riding in my automobile, and I was listening to Dr. King's speech as I went out there. It was just a coincidence when I was going out there to observe. And I said, man, here we are on Martin Luther King Drive. Mm-hmm. And Dr. King, in that particular speech, he was talking about the I Have a Dream speech, where he was talking about little boys and little girls playing together. Yeah. And as I looked down there and I saw there was Christine, a black lady, had a business there. Mm-hmm. And I saw that there was a Chinese place there that had a food place.
Okay.
And you just told me a few minutes ago it was a radio, automobile parts place there.
AutoZone.
AutoZone. and there was a white clothing store. So that is when I said, well, this could be a place where men and women can work together, where we can provide jobs. So I was just so excited for that. I could see the vision where we could do great things if I could purchase that piece of property. So when I was able to do that, I was so happy.
Yeah.
And that is how we came about with Dreamland, because it was in that speech. And if you remember, as we developed the building, when you got to the door, we had a picture of Dr. King, and we had things like love, peace, nonviolence. All of those were posters that were around inside the building.
Yeah.
So that is how we came about Dreamland, and man, I was just as excited about that as anyone, to be able to operate Dreamland.
Yeah.
And we brought a lot of different stars, and I didn't. In other words, there were other people that rented the building, like Doug Sack and Drama. Different people would rent the building and bring artists there.
Yeah, and it was amazing. It was a fun time to be at Dreamland, and for the people that was coming from out of town, and just to see Dreamland closing down. How did that come about? Just the demise of Dreamland.
Okay, well, I hate to say this, but we ran into problems like, I don't know, we didn't get quite the support from the city, and I hate to say that, but we didn't get the support from the city that I thought we should have had, because a lot of the events we had, there would be roadblocks all over the city and things like that. And I don't want to go into that too bad. I don't want to be too negative.
I got you.
But we did have a lot of trouble with that. And then all of a sudden, somebody just offered to purchase the piece of property, and they offered me a pretty nice piece of money, and I decided to accept it. But I'm grateful to have had an opportunity to operate Dreamland.
Wow. It's not every day that somebody just say, hey, I'm on a radio station, so I'm going to get it. Was that the case with you, or did just the love of music inspire you to get the radio station?
Okay, again, that goes back to my early days of things that we didn't have. And I was just thinking as I was coming over here now, I went back to the place where we were not able to hear black voices on the radio station, and then to get to the point where I'm able to come over here and do an interview with you where we're going to be on YouTube and things like all those things that we didn't have.
Yes.
But that is something that played a great role in going into the radio station. And then, see, when I had the nightclubs, we had to do a lot of advertising with the radio stations.
Yeah.
In other words, there was a close connection between the radio station and the businesses that I was operating.
Wow.
And when Mr. and Ms. Wallace decided to retire, they gave me the opportunity to purchase the station.
Yeah.
And one of the employees there at the radio station, Everett Jones, drummer boy, played a great part in asking them to give me the opportunity to purchase the station.
Yeah. Was it a difficult job? Just jumping into radio. What is radio difficult from your standpoint?
When I see at that time, I had so many different businesses going, which I couldn't. In other words, at that point, I was just purchasing, and I didn't do any. We had somebody else to do all the operation of them. The different businesses that I had, I couldn't do them all. So I guess that's why we got into people helping people, man. I just had to have somebody else to help me. So I didn't play such a great, I just mostly owned it. Yeah. But I've never really operated the radio station.
I got you.
And I'm so proud to say now that we have a new owner of the radio station, and it is my granddaughter, Raven Graham Autry.
Wow, that's great. To see a female in position of owning a radio station is big on my point. Just from me looking at it, just to see somebody, a young black woman, just owning a radio station is a big accomplishment from my standpoint. That's amazing. And I salute Raven. I got to get down there and chop it up with Raven soon.
And I want to say that the same thing has happened with our funeral home business. I don't own it anymore. My daughter, Belisha, owns the funeral home, and she's doing a great job with it as well.
Yeah. So did you decide, say, hey, listen, I'm just, I'm tired of it. I just want to pass it on.
Well, I'd reached the point where I had decided to just sell. And try and enjoy a few years of my life. And I'm so thankful that I had members of my family that I was able to sell it to. And let me say this, I am also playing a part because I'm also financing it. I'm selling it to them, but I am financing it, and they are doing a great job so far of keeping the payments up.
So in the funeral home business, it is a business, Do you find yourself when you guys was into the business, when you was into the funeral home business, do you find yourself getting tangled up in emotions, when somebody like a friend passed, and do it affect the business of it?
Okay, now I think everybody that know me know that I am an emotional person myself. Yeah. So with the funeral home, again, that's something that I've owned, but I've always had some good help, some really dedicated people that deal with it, because I don't think I could deal with the day-to-day operations in a funeral home. Wow. So I've had some good help through the years that have helped me with that.
Yeah. So yeah, I got you. Like you got a Chick barbershop, then you got a Piggy's barbershop. You got Serenity Funeral Home, then you got Brittman. Is it competition?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question. When we first went into the funeral home business, I had a friend of mine, and I think it was a family member. He said, "Billy, what's wrong with you?" He said, "We have a funeral home. What's wrong with you going to open up a funeral home?" And I looked at it and I said, that's better for the community. It's good. Competition is good. Yeah. Because if you just have one, just think in your business, if you didn't have any competition, you could treat people any kind of way. Yeah. You could do whatever you wanted to do. Right. So it's always good to have competition. Right. And that's, in other words, it's plenty of business for in other words, plenty of business. So you don't have to compete against one another or something like that. Wow. And I want to say that I'm so grateful for people that have patronized us, and the same thing with Brittman. So it's enough room, and we get along good. And
that's
thank
amazing.
Everybody.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Would you like to share the moment? I guess I can go back go back some years, and you got shot. Would you like to talk about that? Any? Just how was it? Did it affect you any? Did it scare you, or did it just change any perspective?
Yes, that's something that I've lived with all of my life. I guess being a little country boy from Pontotoc, Mississippi, I grew up in a house where we didn't even have a lock on the door. Mm-hmm. Where a lot of nights we would sleep on the porch. So I guess I sort of grew up where I trusted people. Mm-hmm. In other words, because, again, that was my lifestyle. That was the way I grew up. And I just never had any fear or thought things like that would happen to you. But that's something we don't know, so everybody need to provide security and be as careful as you possibly can.
Gotcha. Hey, man, it's amazing just to have you. And they call you the GOAT, the legend, the greatest of all time. You hold a standard in Holly Springs as being one of the staples in Holly Springs. I know you know that, right?
Well, let me say this. You said something a few minutes ago, and I want to thank all of those people. And people probably don't know this, but you mentioned Chick. Mm-hmm. Well, Chick, man, and I know he's a very nice person. I'm crazy about him, but now he was one of I was able to play a small part in him because he once rented a building for me. Big Daddy once rented a building for me. Christine once, you know.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
and I'm so thankful, man. All of those people that we work together and helping each other, and everybody needs support. And I was fortunate enough that I had a brother that was able to help me. He helped me to get started. And if you would ask me, one of the things that I guess I'm appreciative more than anything, a lot of times I'll be sitting at home and I'll have somebody to give me a call, somebody that I hadn't seen in many years, and they'll say, "Man, I just called to check on you." And they'll say, "Do you realize that you helped me to get my first car?" That was another business we had one time. We sold automobiles.
Oh, y'all did? I didn't know about that one.
Well, that little ramp that you see right now up there at Serenity Funeral Home, the little
Oh,
ramp.
yeah, cars used to sit on it.
The cars used to sit there, and that was a car lot there. Okay, but there are several people that I was fortunate enough to help them to get their first automobile. And when they would buy that automobile, I didn't have a finance company, so what I would do is go to the bank and I would co-sign for them. So that person that's calling to tell me how I appreciate that, because if they paid that car and kept the note up like they could, they probably went on to get a house. You know, in those days, it wasn't just easy to go to the bank and borrow any money. I know I had to have my brother to go and support me, and sometimes it's not easy to get a loan.
Right.
But if you are able to start a loan at the bank and keep your note up like you're supposed to, you can always go back and get some help.
Yeah. Wow. Do you see any growth for Holly Springs in the future? Do you see any opportunity for growth?
You know, that is something I was thinking about as I was coming over here a few minutes ago. You know, I told you as I was growing up in my little city, we didn't have much ownership. And it's sad to say, if I go back there today, we still don't have much ownership. So we need to do better. We need to support each other. It's not just having a business, but okay, like in Holly Springs, I think in my lifetime I tried something like 35 or 40 different businesses, radio shack. All of those things were just trying to improve, trying to do better. And if we could just, we should have a bank. We sit here now talking about money, but we should have things like that. But to do things like that, we have got to work together. We have got to support each other. We have got to stop being so jealous of each other. And I think that is the thing that's holding us back. So we need to grow more. And I would love to see us do better in Holly Springs, in Oxford, in Pontotoc, all the little areas that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
There's a lot of room for growth.
Yeah. I saw you. Yeah, you can go ahead get you a drink. I saw you just recently paid a visit to your sister. How often do you get to see your sister?
Okay, now that is since COVID, and my sister, she lives in Beloit, Wisconsin, and before COVID, every summer she would come down and visit us. She would always come and visit us. Yeah. And she's 90. Well, I put on there she was 92, but I made a mistake. She's 91.
91.
She's 91, and she had COVID. And she hadn't really recovered from it, so that is why we went up to see her, and I was so happy to see her. She was looking good, looking great.
She was happy to see you.
And that really made her happy for us to come and visit her. Yeah. Thanks for asking me that question.
Yes, sir. I saw that, and I was like, it's amazing because I have a sister. She was just recently in an accident. Her name is Marie Wells. You know,
I saw that, and I didn't know that, and I was so sorry to hear that. I didn't know that had happened.
Such a tragic event. Just trying to get some overtime on Sunday, and somebody ran up behind her, knocked out the mail truck. Mail truck landed on her leg, and eventually she had to have her leg amputated. So yeah.
Sorry to hear.
Yeah, but her spirit is way better than mine. I can tell I'm the little brother now because I did more crying and stuff. But she's in a good space. So wrapping this thing up, man. I could talk to you forever, but we gotta wrap it up. Could you just give us some encouraging words, or just anything you want to end it with, about business, about family, about anything? The floor is yours.
Okay. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to come over and be with you, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. And my encouragement is going to be just like I told you, that everything that I've done mostly started from a goal that I had when I was a child. So I'm going to ask our community, let's set some goals and stick with it.
There we go. The man himself, he don't know he's the GOAT, but he really do know he's the GOAT. Billy Autry, I appreciate you for stopping at 96.2 Be Banging. I'm Fosta Key. We signing off. I appreciate you, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.